Welcome to the show. Today, my guest is Kory Ross. I'm from over at the Horror Rumble on this channel. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming on such short notice. I haven't felt well all month, so trying to get the programming out as in some sort of, scheduled fashion has been crazy. So it's last minute notice. I'm sure Kory didn't necessarily think he was going to be jumping on Jess Graham Live anytime soon. But I'm glad you're here. This could be interesting for the community to get to know you a little more, and just yeah. So let's jump into it as I usually do here on the show. Thanks for everybody coming and watching. We've got a nice little group out there already. Mike, the real Fifth Beatle, dropped by. He's got to leave, but he's checking out the show tomorrow. Thanks, Mike. Daniel Shine, shout out to both of us.
What's up, Dan?
Of course, our good friend Steak Sauce over from Off the Grill.
Steak.
And Ging. Check out Ging's channel if you haven't, everybody. Hi, Ging. Thank you for stopping by. All right, let's dive. So, Kory, I know you're a movie buff. We've known each other for decades now. When did you sort of become like a movie buff? And then more specifically after that, when did you get into horror?
Well, when I was really young, I had an aunt who took me to the movies. She took me to one movie, Karate Kid 2. I got to see it in theaters. And then later on, I had another aunt who took me to another movie, Three Men and a Baby. But in between that, like my mom was a huge fan of like the movie of the week or movie of the month or whatever on, CBS, NBC, ABC, whatever, the true life movies or whatever, or based on a true story, or later on the Danielle Steele movies and stuff. So I kind of got stuck watching all those and never really figured out that there was a difference between a TV movie and a movie you'd go and see in the theaters. So it wasn't until later on, I was like, oh, well, most of the time it was some old TV actor or something that was in the TV movies, and it was a bigger named actor that was in the theater movies. So as far as when I got into horror, probably right around the same time that you and I first started hanging out, when we first met. Before that,
our mid-teens,
early
high school, mid-high school.
Before that, though, I think my first introduction to horror movies, sometime in the '80s, my grandfather thought it would be a good idea to rent the first two Nightmare on Elm Street movies and try and dub them from VHS to beta. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching the first two Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I don't know how old I was at the time, but I know the second one scared the shit out of me. So I didn't sleep for weeks after that one. But like I said, later on, when you and I first started hanging out after we first met, I really started getting into horror a lot more. And now I'd say that's probably about 60% of what I watch. So,
which I was going to say, we're movie buffs in general. I myself can watch anything from a Disney movie to horror, and everything in between.
I try and stay away from the Disney movies, at least at my age now. But
hey.
yeah, for the longest time, I didn't like black and white movies. I thought they were old and boring, and the stereotypical stuff you'd hear about black and white movies and why people don't watch them. And I happened to be out at Walmart one day and I was looking through their movies, and they had a copy of the Maltese Falcon, and it was for $5. And I'd walk by that thing at least 5 times a week. Like I'd go out there, just scan the different movies that they had, and finally, after about 4 or 5 weeks of looking at this thing, I figured, you know what? It's considered a classic for a reason. It's only $5. If I don't like it, I'm out $5. So I went ahead and bought it, watched it once, and I was like, I really didn't get it. So I gave it another shot and absolutely fell in love with it. And ever since then, I've been a huge Humphrey Bogart fan. Uh, as a matter of fact, if I had to name three movies that are like my top three movies that are not horror, it would probably be The Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, and Angels with Dirty Faces, which is a not Cary Grant, James Cagney movie.
Classics. I love how that happens because a lot of movies I've grown to love were kind of by accident. I was not necessarily forced to see them, but I kind of fell into them, whether a friend or a teacher popped it on and was like, all right, I'll sit down and watch this. I never wanted to, but then you get sucked in just kind of because you're there.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh man, I've been missing out on some wonderful cinema because the box wasn't appealing to me, or like you said, it was black and white, or the title just didn't ring. So that's
Well,
cool. And that is a wide variety going back that far because even I'd say a lot of people who are on YouTube and stuff and like movies, they don't like to go that far back.
yeah. Well, one of the things that drew me to the like the Humphrey Bogart movies and the James Cagney movies was a lot of it had to do with just the dialogue that they would use. I noticed anything I'd watch, I was drawn to a lot of the dialogue. So I'd watch like NYPD Blue, and they'd be talking like the detectives would be talking to somebody about squeezing shoes or something that it doesn't sound like something normal people would say, but once you started watching it and you kind of understood what the dialogue actually meant, it became a lot more fun to watch, and it was more interesting because it wasn't something you heard everyday people say. So,
Nice. Jonathan over at Bombastic Reviews. Hello.
hello,
And then
Jonathan.
regular friend, the Daily Ghost. Good to see you, buddy.
Hello.
Yeah, all our friends out there, thanks for dropping by. Thanks again. Well, I'll get on to my next question then. So you now know we're movie buffs, and I like to feel like maybe a smidge. I know you mentioned your grandpa
Yeah.
uh, getting you into horror though. When we really, because I Nightmare on Elm Street 1 is like probably my first solid memory at like 5 years old of watching a true horror slasher movie. You know, I'd seen Swamp Thing at like 3 years old, made my parents get rid of HBO. But beyond that, like true kind of bloody, scary Nightmare on Elm Street is what hit me and got me into it. So by the time we were in high school, I was probably like, yeah, I need friends that want to watch horror movies with me because beyond, you know, my parents and my sister, which I brought up on other streams, and a couple of my other cousins, you know, there's not large groups of people, and especially in high school, that are like into horror. They're into all other things, but so it's cool when you have a good friend and you get into something like that together. And then
Yeah.
now this community, which we'll get to. So let's move along to my next question with you. I know back in high school you did camera work for local sports programs, which two different things. You started officially with the actual athletic program, but then you moved on to actually camera work for local television here. Tell us
Yeah.
about it.
Uh, initially, I had in middle school, the head coach of the varsity basketball team at the high school was my teacher, and he was looking for essentially lackeys, people to grab water bottles, towels, stuff like that for the players. So I started off doing that, and there was a couple of older kids that were actually in high school at the time that were running the cameras. So when they ended up graduating or moving on, uh, I basically got promoted and started running the cameras for both the varsity and the JV basketball teams. The footage I shot was actually used for college recruiters and stuff like that. So, which was not necessarily a good thing because I tend to get pretty loud and obnoxious when I'm watching sports, and especially if I'm into the game, and tend to curse a lot. So, unfortunately, as I mentioned, my grandfather before, it was a trait I inherited from him. Uh, Growing up Cubs fans, we would constantly yell at the TV in the 80s and 90s. So, uh, but we would, you're young, you say stupid stuff, so it is what it is. But I mean, eventually, that's actually how you and I first met. Was you were running camera for a thing called Area Sports, which was for public access, and we started a conversation and kind of hit it off, and then we ended up having a mutual friend who invited us both to a Super Bowl party,
That's
and
right.
we started hanging out with each other ever since. So it's been 20 plus years since then. So
I think past 25 now, or at
yeah,
least
I think
right
you're
around
right.
there. Well, and then you were, as you said that we'd met up, we were both doing camera separately, but then you were kind of pulled over to what I was doing because we had multiple cameras going for all the major sports in
Yeah,
high school in the areas, and traveling, and
yeah. I think the first thing I ever did with you guys was a wrestling meet. I'm a was a pretty big wrestling fan, but this is high school wrestling and is boring as
and
hell.
wasn't WCW or WWF.
No, no, not by a long shot. Uh, so yeah, that first one was pretty boring, but at least I got to hang out with my buddies and have a good time, with you guys. So, and then later on, doing football games and stuff. And I'm not a big football fan now, but I used to like football back then. As a matter of fact, I remember one game we ended up pissing off the head coach of the football team because we kept getting in his way with the
We had to
camera.
get the
So,
shots.
well, yeah,
He
I
wasn't
thought
doing
so.
anything at the time.
No, he was just standing there yelling.
We're trying to
So,
get the shots for the fans. Dan Shine, Barbos cost you HBO. Well, actually, I was 3. We had HBO in the 80s. It was, well, it's still paid programming, but there's a line in uh, Swamp Thing, and I'll go ahead and tell the quick story. I'm in the car on my way to Buffalo, New York, in a car seat with my dad and my great aunt. She's an older lady, very, country and proper. And my dad gets pulled over for speeding because my mom's mom or dad is in the hospital up there. Long story, I won't get into that. But we're on our way up to New York, Buffalo, New York. Dad gets pulled over for speeding, and a little 3-year-old me turns around and, oh shit, there goes the neighborhood. And that, yeah. And along with a few other things probably that were caught on view in front of my little mind, that my mom was like, no, we're getting rid of HBO and getting the Disney Channel. And Lauren Dixon over from Visited by Voices, thanks for dropping by. I think he was commenting on something you were talking about earlier.
yeah, I agree 110% with Lauren. Uh, if you're not into what the characters are talking about, then who gives a shit? I mean, there's a reason that silent movies went away and talkies were popular. So
That's right, sauce. Well, and Daniel Shine actually has a question for you, which moves into my next question. His question is, Kory, did you ever move out to LA to pursue the Hollywood dream?
no,
No,
I,
but go
I
ahead.
don't mind. I don't mind saying this. To be honest with you, it feels like a whole other lifetime ago. I was married, and actually at the time going through a divorce when Jess actually moved out to LA. We had talked about me going out there, but I also had a daughter and didn't want to leave her. So I stayed here in Iowa. Jess went out to LA to pursue his dream,
Yeah,
and we stayed in contact. So 15 years, and
definitely. Well, and which is leading me to, so what made you go from being like a film buff or, to wanting to get more on the creative side? Because I know, at
well,
least in the time I was out there, you were, and even before that, because we've tried to pull off some local no budget movies on our own, but you
yeah.
really got into writing by the time I was heading to LA.
This is something I don't even think you know yet.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I loved writing short stories and just like little books, and you take 5 pieces of paper and staple the middle, and you make these little booklets and do your own drawings and stuff. Uh, thank God none of that stuff survived. Um,
I know how
but
that goes.
uh, later on, we were trying to get something off the ground, trying to do something that was fun, a no budget movie or whatever. And we had actually enlisted my ex-wife to write the script, and she was taking forever. And I remember getting really impatient and came up with my own story idea and started writing. I think I wrote 13 pages the first night. Uh, and as long as it took her, it took me even longer because I kept rewriting the same script for about 7 years. And when I finally thought I had it all done and it was ready, for people to actually read, and sent it out to LA, and I got a response. It was not the response I was looking for, though. Um, I think the quote was, if you were to take everything that was good about this script and remove it and put it on clean paper, it might be 2 pages worth of combined shit that resembled the start of a good idea. So,
I don't even almost remember that response.
it's stuck with me. But the thing is that with any sort of rejection or anything, in any shape, form, or fashion, I'll get pissed, but then I turn that into a drive that I want to do better. I want to make whatever it is I'm doing 10 times better than it was before. So while I may have shelved that particular script, uh, I ended up working on something else. And actually, it was something that you and I had talked about, and I sent it out again. And the same people came back and they liked it. They wanted to do it. Unfortunately, we had no money, very little money, let me say, and not the type of equipment I guess we really needed. So we started shooting, and they were storing the footage on a hard drive, and unfortunately, some of the footage got lost. And at that point, it was too late to go back and reshoot.
Well, if I can
So
intervene, yeah, after a couple of tries, like you kept going, you got a script
yeah,
and this small production company, which I was associated with at the time, but I wasn't in charge of just saying green lighting everything that came in. Uh, but they did like this. A lot of people thought it would be a fun idea, and you and I started it as sort of just, let's shoot this on the weekend out there
yeah,
for fun. And then somebody else, we did have the equipment to film it, but I guess storage was,
I could have
this is over a
said
decade ago.
that differently.
Yeah. Drives at the time, I don't think, necessarily were had with the production company that had free space. So rather than buying a new expensive drive, somebody lent it or something. And I don't even know all this information, like what exactly how it went, but I know 65% of the movie budget the actual production company covered because they had faith in your script.
Yeah,
Um, which was still, it was damn near no budget. We were talking maybe breaking $1,000 or something like that and shooting on weekends. But Anyway, these drives were borrowed, and then they were stored with somebody that thought they could be trusted, and then that person was fired from wherever that stuff was being stored, and then like 30% or more of the footage just was not there anymore, disappeared. And this is after I think about 90%, almost 90% of the movie was shot.
Yeah, I think you and I had a conversation once. It was something about if you guys were to go out and film like full days, it would be like 3 more days of shooting or something. A lot of it was like second unit stuff.
Yeah, it's
But
just it's a shame because a lot of people were, it was a zombie movie, I will say that. A lot of people were behind it. There was, and it had some great stuff. There's some great raw footage out there, and it's not in either of our possessions.
no,
I've got some clips I took off a phone off of filming off of some of the early editing stuff, but beyond that, yeah, it's out of our hands. Maybe someday we can find those people again, or somebody can cut together at least a trailer with what footage is there, but who knows? Who knows on that? And Dan had a couple of things. Dan says, "Oh, we'd love to see one of your low budget movies sometimes. That'd be a lot of
absolutely.
fun." And yeah, Sauce, that it was pretty brutal because I think off and on you worked a couple years on this.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, but like I said, all it did was just make me want to write better, uh, write more at the time. I actually had the time to write, so the job I had at the time, I could write in between customers. I actually worked at a Circle K, so
Like Bill and Ted.
yeah.
Well, they might not have worked there.
No, they didn't work there, but there was definitely something afoot there.
Dan Shine definitely knows shooting, filming, and budgets, lower budget guerrilla shooting, things like that. And
Wasn't
yeah.
there was a funny story about the police and one of the scenes.
There's a couple of funny stories similar to that, but really quick, what I think you're talking about is one of the main characters has a soaked in blood white shirt, basically collared shirt, and he's searching for his son. He runs out with a baseball bat, which was actually it looked real, but it was a foam bat. Ran out of this house in a neighborhood in Northridge, screaming basically for his son or something.
It was like
And yeah,
2
the
or 3 in
cops
the morning.
like to, because there's several takes, and this guy's running out in a bloody shirt. And of course, LAPD was called, which they came, explained to him that it was a low budget, kind of fun, but they were cool about it. They did invite him in, showed him the bat was fake, had to do a quick search on the house to make sure nobody was being held hostage or murdered or something. But true story, you're right. I almost forgot about that. Oh, anyway, so that fell through. I was also doing my own things and productions, working out there. I moved back, and I had been watching YouTube stuff, in the community, getting into that, which I never thought I'd do, but that's a whole nother story too. And next thing I know, I'm getting involved in actually getting on streams. And around this time, I'm poking Kory, going, "Oh, you should watch some of these guys. It's like a big group of people like us, and they love not just horror movies, but all movies, but especially horror." And he's like, "All right, maybe one of these times I'll check it out." Right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think I told Lauren this once. The very first episode of anybody in this community's shows that I watched was Lauren's interview with Boris Karloff's daughter. And unfortunately, I only got to catch part of it because my wife was very adamant we had to leave at that point. So, uh, but after that, I think I started checking out some of the other ones. I think he messaged me and said, hey, check out this. These guys are going to be on. Check them out. Uh, and I don't really think it was until the hot pepper challenge I really started watching. What was that? S'mores Indoors. So The other Kory, or I guess I'm the other Kory. He's Kory, or I think Steak calls him
S'morey.
S'morey.
You're Kory
But
with a K, Kory Ross. Anyway.
yeah, that's when I really first started, watching and starting to, see everybody. And I wasn't too quick to jump into the chat or anything. Was a little
Well, and I'm over here
intimidated.
pushing you, going, get a YouTube account. I know you might not want to even jump on a community stream if there's an open link, but at least get in the chat, add your input on the move, because we obviously like the interaction, whether you're on screen or you're in the live chat. We all feel like we're still a community. Speaking of, there's Sean, who I've tried to get on shows for. I'm not the only one, for over a year now. Good
Hello,
evening,
Sean.
Good to see you. Dan, yeah, I knew you were in production stuff, so. And I don't know all the technical side of it. I work behind the scenes a lot, and I have a general knowledge of things, but that doesn't mean I'm skilled in every department by any means. Most departments, no. So anyway, rolling up to, so you finally get in some of the chats, and then I'm doing more and more streams, being invited on streams, jumping on, somewhat inviting myself. And at the end, everybody's always like, oh, so what are you doing on your channel? What are you doing on your channel? And those of you who know, a year ago, tried to start another channel with her good friend Timmy, and then a not so good friend, and that failed. Not because the show was bad. It was just, yeah. And I was like, well, maybe I should start doing another channel, but I don't know what I'm going to do. Kory, what do you think of doing something? And I think you told me no the first few times.
Yeah. I wasn't real big about getting on camera and didn't know how any of this stuff works. I'm not computer savvy at all. I know how to go to a couple of baseball websites, and I used to go to WrestleZone, but outside of that, I don't know. And like my wife showed me, oh hey, if you put this thing, it's called an app on your phone, you can go to Facebook. So I don't know jack about computers or cameras or any of this stuff. So I've kind of had to learn as I went. So
Well, and me too. And a lot of people, I think, confuse that. Oh, well, and Dan might be able to back this up, if you know production, or, oh, you were involved in film, you know how to run every technical camera and what they mean. And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm not computer literate. I had to figure this stuff out. It's like I'm pressing buttons to figure things out. I still am. I don't have the best camera. I don't, I just got what I could of equipment.
Yeah.
And thought, well, let's just do this. We're doing this for fun, all in all. We're not trying to, great if we ever make money doing this, but we're doing this because we enjoy doing this. We enjoy the community, chatting with like-minded people, I think. And just, it's sort of a creative outlet. I think I had told you, well, YouTube seems to be, I know with my kid, it's kind of the new television, or at least a part of it.
Yeah.
People getting online. You watch more YouTube than you do sitcoms or shows anymore. So it is a creative outlet. And I thought maybe you and we can finally have a finished project, and which we did eventually, the Horror Rumble, which it's our show together. But I got to give Kory a lot of credit, because basically said, what do you got? You got the ideas. You're the writer of the two of us, and glad you guys. Thank you, Sean. And you kind of came up with the Horror Rumble, and I just added my own ideas to yours.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I was reading the chat.
I know. No. I think he's talking about the.
No, absolutely.
The Visited by Voices show. Oh,
actually, if anything, I seeing that being the first thing that I saw actually intimidated me more, because you're talking Boris Karloff's a fucking icon in any genre. I don't care what genre it is. He's an icon, So just the fact that you had his daughter on, to me, that was a big deal. So there was no eye rolling at all whatsoever. It was just asked me if I wanted to do this, and I'm sitting. Honestly, your show is one of the ones that popped in my head, and I'm sitting there going, I can't do what he does.
Well, Lauren is, you know how I feel. I think he's a great writer, but I'm not
Oh,
too sure to get
he's
off too
better than
much
I
while you're
am,
in the
for
chat,
damn sure.
Lauren. He's very articulate and he's great at hosting it, at asking questions. His words, it's just I mumble and I'm like, blah, 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 what? How'd you like starring in Halloween 3? You know, I'm just that's what I got. I can never think of anything profound to really truly ask these people. So,
uh,
uh,
if anything, and to be honest with you, since we started doing this, it you guys have, all of you guys have made me feel so welcome. Uh, like Jess said earlier, it's really hard to find groups of people that are like minded when it comes to horror. Uh, you know,
thanks, Ben.
I didn't think that many people watched full moon movies. And I think ended up having a conversation with you, Jess, once when you were out in LA, and I was like, you know what movie I miss watching? And you were like, what? And I was like, Puppet Master. I miss Puppet Master. I used to sit in my aunt's house. My aunt had a pretty nice house at the time, and she had a satellite dish. First person in my family to buy a satellite dish instead of cable, and it'd be on like, granted we live in Iowa, but she'd have it on like HBO West, and they're, Puppet Master 2, 4, 5, and 6 back to back, and I'd sit there and watch those. It was fun. I loved those movies, but once again, that wasn't until mid 90s, and when I started getting more into horror. But uh,
Well, and then you could hit up the video stores on your own by then.
well,
I
yeah,
mean, I was renting them in the 80s, but
but
I think
I ended up, looking all over for Puppet Master, and found subspecies, and uh, Trancers. I know that's like Empire, but it's, to me, it's still Full Moon. Um, just all these different Full Moon movies. I absolutely love them, but nobody around where we live talks about Full Moon.
well, even myself, when you'd say that, I'd be like, yeah, I like the Puppet Masters. Okay, I remember renting them once or twice, but they weren't at the top of my list. Which, by the way, we of course did a Horror Rumble episode on the Puppet Master franchise. So if you want those answers, go check out that episode. Weren't you on that episode, Dan?
I think he was, but I can answer that real quick.
Okay.
I love Littlest Reich. I was actually, as soon as I heard that they were remaking it, I started following it. I was looking up different articles on it, or looking for different articles on it almost every day. When they released the trailer, I I watched it at least a dozen times the first day. Showed my wife, showed my kids, my 16-year-old son, who I think at the time that was what, 2016. Uh, yeah, he was like 12 or 13 or whatever. Uh, he loves full moon movies. He loves Puppet Master. He gets into all this stuff with me. So we actually, we couldn't wait for it. And when the movie came out on video on demand, we rented it right away. And then as soon as it came out on DVD, I went out and bought it. So, but yeah, I absolutely love that movie.
It surprised me too. I liked it a lot, and I think I said that in the show too.
Yeah.
Well, I've got one final thing before we wrap it up here. Uh, Actually, it's both of us, but you want to go ahead and we got a big announcement. Kory not only hosts the Horror Rumble and is basically the creator. Where we host together. Um, but he's basically the vice president of this channel, of Cable Channel 11.
Which comes with no responsibility.
Well,
Well,
it
virtually
does.
none.
It does. It does. I mean, a lot of times, yeah, people are, oh, Jess's channel. It is, but it's his too. If there is another person in charge, it's definitely Kory here bringing programming to Cable Channel 11. So we've got a big announcement, as Steak Sauce said on his show earlier tonight on Off the Grill. We have tipped over. We've hit the 100 subscriber mark. We're pretty proud
We're
of
starting
that.
our slow crawl to 200.
Slow crawl to 200. Thanks to you guys, not just the subscribe, but you who actually tune in to our stuff and watch it, who participate in the chats. Thank you. It's awesome. So we kind of want to do a little. I'll go ahead and tell them.
Well, we're going to do a little giveaway. Make sure that you are subscribed. Check your notifications or whatever it is you need to do so you don't miss it. At some point next month, we are going to do a special giveaway show for our 100 subscribers. I won't tell you what it is, but just you'll have to watch and you'll get the information on the special stream we do.
I mean, can I give a kind of a clue of what we're
small?
Because it's nothing. It's nothing huge.
No, it's nothing.
I want you to
nothing
get excited.
huge.
We're not giving away a stack of awesome new Blu-rays or anything like that.
I was going to say a new car, but
or a new car, or a TV, flat screen TV or anything. But
just tell them we're sending somebody a naked picture of Jess.
Well, that's
flexing.
Just tune in, look for a video on this channel. It'll give you the instructions on what to do. Just a little thank you from us. Again, nothing huge, but yeah, if you get drawn or however we're going to do it, we'll send you a little care package from the channel. And Retro Cac Gibbs, thanks for stopping by, buddy. He's been on the Horror Rumble before.
Yes, he has.
And do you have anything else you'd like to tell the viewers before we wrap her up?
Well, Sean, I do want to tell you that Jess loves the Elm Street remake. He says he doesn't. He loves it. He really does.
Almost makes me not want to do the Elm Street franchise next year. But I mean, well, thank you all for watching, and Kory, thank you again so much for coming on last minute notice.
Well, thanks for having me on.
I really enjoyed it, and you're right. I did learn something about you that I don't think I really even knew earlier. So that's cool, and I hope the community got to know you a little better on this show. And yeah, so we'll be back next month with a new Horror Rumble, a special announcement video for our 100 subscriber giveaway, and hopefully another Jess Graham Live, and maybe more. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time